Hey everyone! Thank you for joining. As Ravi said, I think great to be here, and I hope everyone is staying safe. And yeah, just find a way to live every day.
Yeah.
That's the most
So,
important thing to do.
like, I have a couple of questions for you. So we can start with that. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, I just want to say
Can
thank you for inviting me here as well. It's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope whatever questions you ask and whatever answers I give,
thank you very
I
much for
hope they're
coming.
helpful
That's
to the people. So
yeah. So,
yeah.
okay, let's start with your early years. So, like, did you have an inclination towards designing since your school days, or it came up when you were doing your bachelor's in electronic communication, or maybe later on?
So I'm glad you asked that question, and I think this will go to anyone who feels like they want to do something creative in life. Because for me, also, I felt like as I look back, right, like I mean, it'll seem like I transitioned to design after a point of time in my career, but as I look back, when I was in probably school, I was always into just drawing and designing stuff a lot. Like and when I was a kid, I think design just meant anything artsy. Like it was either you're doing something creative or you're not doing something creative, or probably doing something analytical. And this is way back in like early 2000s, late 90s, or something like that. So to answer your question, I think what happened was I had I think my dad got a new laptop. It was a Sony Vaio, and it had a pre-installed version of Photoshop Elements. That was basically like my window to digital design. Like all I really wanted to do was uh, draw wallpaper so that I can just change my dad's wallpaper every day. But at the same time, I was very inspired. Like I used to watch these cartoons, right, like Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls and what's it called, Dragon Ball Z. And in fact, like at that time, I was in the US. So as a kid, I think that uh, penetration of Japanese anime was a lot higher as compared to Indian that time. Like it happened later, but yeah, what happened at that point of time was I was really into it. Like I was really into Dragon Ball Z. I was in, like a lot of cartoons were happening like, back then, like Rurouni Kenshin, Yu Yu Hakusho. Very funny sounding names right now to people, I guess. But the point was, I was so inspired by those cartoons. I wanted to draw like that. And so there were these two constant outlets as a kid. Like I was either constantly drawing stuff, or if I was on the laptop, I was trying to tinker around with software and tools. Like I found Photoshop, so I was like, hey, maybe I'll just try making a new wallpaper. Let me try messing with colors. Let me try messing with the liquify tool. And that's kind of all where it started. And then as time went on, I think this was around sixth grade, fifth or sixth grade. And then as time went on, I think in eighth-ish, I came back to India. And when I did come back again, I was like super interested. I was already like kind of well versed with Photoshop at this point. So I was kind of editing photos or drawing stuff with shapes or just writing my name in fancy text effects and all that. And at that time, I think it was a big deal because not a lot of people had access to it, and maybe a lot of people were not even interested in doing that. And yes, so when I did come back to school in India, I think my computer science teachers kind of recognized that he's doing something creative. So they wanted to they asked me to make posters. They asked me to make magazine covers and all of that. And that's kind of where it began, right? Like the applied design aspect of it. Like, so I was making stuff and it was getting like sent or printed somewhere. I think one example was there was a version of the computer science club of the school. There was a logo, and I think I just kind of cleaned it up a bit more and made a wallpaper out of it. So they basically changed it to change all the computer wallpapers to that one. So I think that sense of branding came from there. And then again, I just kept being very inquisitive and curious about, hey, what is this new tool? So I discovered Flash, and then I was like, oh, I can animate stuff now. So then I discovered 3ds Max, and then I was like, oh, okay, 3D animations, this is how they make 3D animations. So probably movies like Toy Story, this is what they're doing. I mean, of course they're doing a much advanced version of it, but in my head it was like, oh, they're using something like this. I mean, I was as a kid and I couldn't pull off something crazy, but I tried. I think in my way, I just kept tinkering. And again, that led to at that point of time there was all these inter-school competitions where they asked you to design websites, design posters, or design animations, and there was like a flash animation kind of competition between schools. So I was like the go-to guy for these computer science people, like kisko bhej do and he'll probably win or something. And that did end up happening. Like I didn't always win, but at least it was a really fun thing for me to do. And that's where I think I got that real boost for, I wanted to do something creative. I want to do something creative. Then again, as a kid, I never knew what is a career I can make out of this. Like I remember I asked my neighbor once. He was a kid of the same age as me, same class as me, same, not same school but same grade as me. So I asked him, I'm really interested in this, and I want to do this when I grow up. So he's like, what are you going to do? You want to make wallpapers? I'm like, yeah, I think if that works, I would totally love that. But of course, I didn't know. And then as time went on, of course, uh, like these consistent patterns were emerging, right? Like I was either interested in anything computer science related or something creative. So given that inclination to computer science and given the lack of knowledge about what can I do in something creative, I ended up going into engineering. And that's where I think, yeah, I mean, I wanted to get computer science, but I got ECE, which is, I think, traditionally in India, it's always been, it's okay, it'll be more or less the same thing. So, so I did that. I jumped into it, and I thought, okay, we'll figure it out from here. And by the end of fourth year, I did not enjoy it that much. uh, I was like it wasn't just feeding into my creative thing, and then my inclination towards computer science, like if I wanted to do more of C++ or something, I wasn't even getting that. But what I did do was I kind of paved my way in, like, college had a lot of events. So again, I said I'll do all the posters, I'll do all the branding, I'll do the magazine covers. So that's how I kept staying attached to design. Yeah, I mean, again, like I'll tell you, like when college ended or when it was about to end, and I was looking at options, I thought I'll go into film school because that was to me the most creative outlet that I could find. I couldn't find anything design related. I was just not aware. And then my mom told me, "Hey, why don't you apply for? Okay, you want to do film school? Okay, you try for that as well. But why don't you apply to NID? NID is National Institute of Design in India. So my mom, I think, had applied as a kid, and I think it was her dream also to try something like that. So I tried that, and in some way, like I think we found this very convenient course, which was strategic design management. So it's a mix of design and management. So in a way, like the traditional part of my parents' head was fulfilled. Ki, okay, it's something management related, MBA type cheese, so it's safe. And my thing was satisfied. Okay, I'm doing something design related. So I think I went through with the interview, but at the interview stage, I think I got rejected, and then I kind of lost faith. And around that same time, I had already joined EY, and I was like, okay, so I'll just continue being at EY, and I'll probably do an MBA. Let's see, like traditional life path. Let's see what happens. It's a proven track, so nothing bad should happen. So that's what I thought at that point of time. And then, like a bunch of things. I think I'm just narrating the entire story here, but what happened after that was I ended up finding out about this workshop by MIT called the Design Innovation Workshop. It was in Bombay in 2014 or something around that time. And that's where I learned that IITs also offer design as a course for masters. And I was like, oh, in fact, like my first reaction when I went there was, I found out. I don't know if you guys have heard of Pranav Mistry. I'm sure you have. The guy who made the Sixth Sense thing. He went to MIT, and I was like, hey, ugh, I'm never gonna make it to MIT. And then I was like, okay, what did Pranav Mistry study before this? And then it said, yeah, he went to IIT, and I was like, I'm never gonna make it to IIT. But then I saw IIT had a design thing, so I was like, okay, wait, this is something I can genuinely try pursuing. So I did try that, and I think it worked out.
So basically,
Yeah, yeah, you were
like
saying
there
something,
were
so I
two
just wanted you
reasons
to
that
complete.
I
Yeah.
like designing. First, that I could miss lectures and do some stuff that I was like I was the creative guy at school, and second was that it was the only place, counting auditoriums etc., where we had ACs during the school. So while like all other kids were sitting in classrooms and sweating, I was sitting in front of the AC. I had a fixed place that I always like sat next to. So,
Yeah, I completely hear you. Like exactly same-ish journey, different time period. I think because I was also known as the computer guy, the Photoshop guy, or just the creative guy. Because at that point of this time, design as a career probably didn't exist, or people just didn't know about it. And for me, it's also like we got those luxuries, right? Like I kept getting sent to different schools for competitions, missing classes legally, and sitting in the AC computer science lab all the time. So those luxuries were
exactly.
part of the thing.
Yeah,
But I
like
think
you talked
good
about that
motivation,
you
good
were working
incentive.
as an analyst at EY, and like once we had a conversation about EY, you told me a story about how you actually continued that passion of designing even at EY. So how did it went?
Yeah, that's good. Good thing you brought that up. So even when I was at EY, I felt like I think I'll give you a few examples. Um, when I was at EY, I was like, okay, I was generally like kind of growing up in any way. Like I was figuring out how the job world works, what it is like to have a job, what it means to earn money, learning how to spend it, and all of that. Um, and then when I was at EY, like it was kind of a very Excel heavy job. It was a very oddity kind of job, which is, I mean, it's a good thing. Like I'm very thankful to my time at EY because in probably roughly 2 years, it gave me an insight into like probably 10 different companies, which I would not have got if I had just joined a single company. So consulting does that for you. And when I was at EY, I was still I had a creative itch still, right? Like, so I was like, okay, what can I do? So, okay, few examples are one thing that they used to do was they used to randomly have these competitions where, hey, just shoot a short film and you can win a prize. So those were like my creative. I was craving for them. Those were my creative outlets. The minute I would hear about those competitions, I was like, yes, I'll make a film. I'll do a photography thing. I'll make a poster. That was one example. Then the other example is I joined their CSR group, which is the Corporate Social Responsibility Group, and I said, like they generally do things for causes. Like they'll help, they'll volunteer for different causes. They'll donate clothes, all of those things. So yeah, I mean, I used to do donation and all that, but what I used to do really, and I really enjoyed it, was I used to I told them, I'll make posters for you. Like if you have an event or if you have a drive coming up, I'll make the poster for you. So I would kind of dig into their system and find the branding guidelines. And to me, finding that was like finding a secret treasure. It was like, whoa, what secret knowledge have I stumbled upon? Oh, this is what a branding document looks like. One day I want to make this branding document. This is what I want to eventually do. Um, and then yeah, that to me was very fascinating, and I used to make those posters. And finally, one more example was, so I was not even satisfied with um, just doing Excel work. I wanted my Excel sheets to look really beautiful. So I used to like really automate the heck out of them. I used to do these very nice conditional formatting. So Excel gives you these nice conditional formatting colors, right? But I would really go in deep, and I would be like, hey, if this is the green that I'm using, then this is the red that I should be using. If this is the green fill that I'm using, then this is the green border that I should be using. Then the green text color that I should be using. This is the gray that I should be using. So in my way, like I kind of tried to eyeball it at that point of time because I was not, like, I think formally trained, or I just did not know what goes into making a proper finished UI. But I
So
think in
eventually,
my way, I
like
was just trying to beautify
even
myself as
though
well.
you left design a little bit, you were exactly not in design, but you were still gaining experience in designing at that point of time. So that's amazing.
I would say, yeah, I mean, as I look back, it's just that I had already always been doing design. I was just not doing it as a career, but I was just doing it for fun regardless. I think one thing that happened was once I did get hired in Microsoft, I think my manager's manager, once we were talking just casually about it, and I told him, hey, even if I wasn't here, I would still just be doing this. Like I maybe just sitting at home and doing this, but
Wow,
I would
that's
just be doing this because
amazing.
this is something that I enjoy.
And like one more thing, I didn't hear about UI UX until like I actually came to college. So during 2012, UI UX design was something new comparatively to like other topics in India, especially. So like, did you have any challenges in particular because it was still a relatively new field? And if you had any challenges, how did you overcome them?
This is a great question, and I would say the huge coincidence is I still get this question even like my flatmate would ask me this question, or my friends still ask me this question: how did this happen? How did you learn? Oh, when did you learn about that? Or when did you do this? So I mean, yeah, of course I didn't know what UI UX is. I as a kid didn't know what design is. So I think what happened is I kept realizing again and again that I like this combination of tech and creativity, tech and creativity. So I think that's where I was just maybe unwittingly heading towards. And when did I hear about UI UX or interaction design as a domain? Okay, there used to be this place called DeviantArt, where I mean it was really popular in the early 2000s, late 2000s. Not as popular now, I guess. I don't know. But I used to be like really into it. I used to join these different groups. So I ended up joining these. You could be an admin for three groups or something. Like your favorite groups could be only three at that point of time. So one was typography, second one was wallpapers or something, and the third one was, it constantly intrigued me. It was UI UX, and I did not know. It just sounded very fancy. It had the X letter in it, so I was like, it's something cool. So and and then I think I'll tell you like the examples at that point of, right. Like at that point we had that old Nokia Symbian phone. I had a Nokia Engage, and we used to play. So it didn't have native MP3 support, so we got this Lonely Cat Games MP3 player inside of it, and it was kind of skinnable. Then there was this other app called Og Play, and it was also skinnable. So I really spent like the time that kids would go out to play, I was spending it at home, reskinning these things. So and I was like, oh, maybe the button should look like that, maybe this should look like that. And then I tried to do that for Windows as well. Like I was really passionate about really theming up my entire Windows desktop. um so I think that's where I knew I liked I doing that, but I still didn't know that UI UX as a field existed, and mostly what I was doing was just UI, not UX. And then I think until I entered my master's program, I didn't formally know what it really entails. And then I think I learned or I mean through masters, through reading books, through kind of just figuring out what it means, what is it, like through observation, what does designing an experience mean over designing an
Yeah,
interface.
but
So
I guess now
I
UI
think
UX
that's
has
where I
crawled
started
its
learning.
way into a part where like it's being used in every company out there, because the thing is that the owner or the basically company doesn't want to spend uh, a lot of money on developing the app before actually knowing how it would look. So like that saves them a lot of money, and it creates a demand for UI UX designers.
I'll kind of comment on that point. So I I think it's not just about companies don't want to make something without knowing what it looks like. I think the example that I would give you is, imagine a company full of engineers working on a product, and they build something. And I mean, I'll ask you this question, and probably to everyone watching this, you don't have, I mean, I probably can't hear you, but you can answer in your head, in your room, wherever. uh, how many times have you downloaded an app and you're like, ugh, it just doesn't feel good to use, I'm going to delete it. So in 10 seconds you made that choice, right? You downloaded something, you made that choice, it sucks, and you got rid of it. And behind that like that decision that you made in 10 seconds, like there is a company full of people coding that app, a lot of late nights worked, a lot of money being spent, and just because it wasn't designed right, it failed, right? Like in 10 seconds you just made that choice. So it's not genuinely about what it looks like, but how does it perform. I know a lot of apps that don't look very fancy, like WhatsApp, I will give you that example. It looks like a very normal app. um, but in a way I think it's one of the best designs, because what you're it's kind of invisible. Like the usage pattern there is so obvious and simple. Let's say you're sitting in class, there's a lecture going on in front of you, you can literally sneak a phone underneath your desk, type a message, and get done with it without even looking at it, right? I don't think I mean, I think that's what design aims to be, right? It has to be so good that it becomes invisible. um so yeah, I think it's not just about what it looks like, but in general, is it satisfying that users need? Is it satisfying that users job? Are people able to do what they wanted to do, or what they thought they wanted to do, easily? That's probably more about where it's at. I mean, there's probably things like, hey, if the icon looks ugly, I'll probably not even download it. But you know, to be very honest, like think of an app like Cam Scanner. um, even if the app icon was not that great, if it was scanning things really nice, you'd be like, okay, sure, I'll use it. It doesn't matter. It might be
Yeah,
ugly, but
like
I'll still
I
use it. So that's
agree.
where
It
it's really at.
adds that level of aesthetics to it, and you can't just like once you're hooked onto an app, you can't just move your eyes from it if it like looks really good. So like, how was your life at IIT Delhi? Like while you were doing your Masters of Design?
Oh, fun times. To anyone aspiring for IITs, hey, it's definitely the place. I mean, all the things that you heard as a kid about it are true. It's just definitely a worth place going to, a worth a place. It's worth going to. Like you should study hard and go there, please. As a kid, I probably didn't understand this well enough, but I ended up going there somehow, and I think it's definitely something that everyone should aspire for. It's a good place. I think my time there was fun. I mean, that doesn't mean that there aren't other good places. There are definitely other good places, but I'm just commenting about my time in IIT. Um, it was a lot of fun. I think it gave me, like, I think some of the profs, I mean, I'll kind of combine my collective experience. I spent a year at Triple IT Jabalpur and 2 years at IIT Delhi, and maybe we can dive into how and why that happened as well later on. But and my combined experience in these colleges, right, like Triple IT Jabalpur and IIT Delhi, some of the profs are really amazing. That's where the true learning is. And probably I wasn't used to that kind of model earlier. Earlier I was like, this is knowledge and it has to be gained, and that's it, end of story. This, you go to a building and you are somehow expected to absorb that knowledge and come out, and that is the criteria of success. But some of the profs that I met, especially in Triple IT Jabalpur, also were so good. um, they kind of lead you to think in a particular manner or observe things in a particular manner, and that's where I think, you start asking questions, you become. And I think I would suggest that to anyone, regardless of whether you go to IIT or not, or any college or not. The point is, if you stay curious and stay observant, that itself is going to take you far. Like, eh, I mean, commenting for just myself, I would say, just because I was curious about, hey, what is this new software, what can I do with this, what happens when I press this button, like Didi would do to Dexter's Lab, like, ooh, what happens when I press that button? So just don't be afraid of doing that, because your laptop is not going to explode. There is no red button that is going to make your laptop explode. So I think that passion for curiosity is definitely there, and I think the good profs, they do that. They'll basically keep that light of curiosity alive inside of you, and they'll keep leading you to more and more questions, and they kind of take you to answers as well. But the good thing is finding answers yourself. That is where it's really at. And apart from that, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think any college is fun.
So what is like working
Yeah.
at Microsoft? Is it like a dream company that a person always wanted to be, and was it a dream company for you?
Absolutely, without a shred of doubt, it was definitely a dream company for me. So I remember in eighth grade, or ninth grade, probably, your teachers would ask you to do these creative little assignments. So I think they gave us these little cards, and they used to have this huge blackboard, and next to the blackboard, they would have these pin boards where you would just pin things. I very clearly just wrote, Bill Gates is my idol. This is exactly what I want to do. I want to go to Microsoft. I want to do these things. And that was back in eighth or ninth grade. And and at that point, I think that was all the rage, right? Like having a Windows PC, probably maximum unheard of, especially in India. iPhones didn't exist. It was all about Symbian. So for me, it was like, definitely Microsoft is a way. Um, and then I grew up, and I like, see, if you think of doing something as a kid, right, it's always going to be a part of your heart, no matter what you do. So even if I grew up and, like, okay, now Apple is probably there are iPhones, there's no more Nokia Symbian, there's no, like, things have changed, right? The landscape has changed. And yet, when I did get into Microsoft, I was still very happy. It is all the bit of awesome that you have probably heard of. It is great. And in a way, I'm very thankful to be here. What else? It's been a lot of fun. Like, the cool thing here is you genuinely get that opportunity to work on things that you're really passionate about. And think of things like, so whatever you do, right, genuinely ends up in the hands of a lot of people. And I was always passionate about doing things that reaches people.
What is the
Yes, yes.
inspiration behind your designs? Like you while you used to design stuff, you always had some page or some person in mind that you thought, okay, I
Mhm.
want to design stuff like this.
Yeah, great question. I think it's always good to have maybe more than one person in mind. That's how I feel like, so that you kind of broaden your horizons of what you want to do in life. So I think I really liked what Dieter Rams was doing. If you guys have heard of him, probably, I hope you have, because he's made a lot of products that have kind of inspired a lot of designs that even exist today. When I was in college, I think I was really kind of in admiration for what Dieter Rams was making at Braun. And yeah, he gave these 10 commandments of good design. And I think, yeah, I made a YouTube video about it. Please check it out. And that was itself a college assignment, just to make that YouTube video. And what else? I think, of course, if anyone today is inspired for making products, I think they'll be inspired by Apple products, and they're like, oh my God, they look so nice. And so the guy behind that also has always been an inspiration, Jonathan Ive. However, I will add that both of these guys are kind of trying to follow this Bauhaus design principle, which was, I think, set up in Germany around the time of the Second World War or something. And I think it ended by the time the war also ended, but it left whatever teachings it had. Um, and that's I think what most modern minimal design tries to kind of do. Um, I think, yeah. So that's always been my inspiration to create something that can be a part of your life. Doesn't have to be like too thing. Uh, I mean, I generally don't like things that are a bit wasteful. So that's why I appreciate Apple for what it does, because one quick fact is, let's say when they make their iMacs, right, and they're using this aluminum block to kind of make things. So when they kind of cut out the space for the screen, they'll not throw away that piece. They'll take away that piece and make keyboards out of it. So I like that fact that they're not being wasteful about it.
Like,
And I think generally, if the design
yeah,
itself is easy to use, it becomes invisible, just becomes second nature. That's where it really has been for me. I think one more thing that has always inspired me is, so this guy is Virgil Abloh. He's a fashion designer. He worked on this brand called Off White, and now he's, I think, heading in creative design for Louis Vuitton. But then he kind of brought alive this street style thing, which I think people are kind of getting into these days, and it has reached its saturation. And it really got its avenue from sneakers that are kind of non-conventional, like sneakers that are looking a little bit wild. But I like this philosophy that he had, which was about 5% change. So there's a nice video of him. I think I would talking at Harvard. Go ahead and watch it. It's an hour-long video. Um, but yeah, I like what he does, because it's that little 1 5% change thing that he does, where everything will stay as is. But imagine like a white desk and then putting a red keyboard on it, just to kind of draw a lot of attention to it. So that's kind of interesting. It's a new spin on things. And I can't show you my laptop's front right now.
do you have any advice for young designers? Like something you wish that maybe you knew while you were young, like starting this journey?
Well, first thing is, be passionately curious. I think Albert Einstein used to say that, and I heard this quote in my convocation at BVP. So, so connection there. Yeah, be passionately curious, because whether or not you end up in design, or what branch of design you end up in, if you are kind of furthering your own interests and passions, being happy at the end of the day is what it's really about. Um, for people who want to get into design, observe more. Like, that's so stupid to say, right? Like, observe more. मैं क्या करूं? Should I wear chashmas and should I wear spectacles and observe more? No. So yeah, but think about it. I think Steve Jobs also famously said, right, like everything that you see around you, except for like nature, um, has been made by someone. Someone made every single thing that you see So think about it. Think about just think. You don't probably won't get the answers, but think about how that came to be. Why did someone make a table like this? Why did make someone make a mouse like this? Why does my window have grills on it that are like this? And you'll get so many answers. Like you'll get answers about why we practice certain things as part of our religion as well. Like if you constantly ask why, right? Like, oh, if our religion used to guide us, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Why? Because at that time it was being made, certain things were going on that kind of inspired them to do it like that. And always find an outlet. Like, don't just consume content. Please create something, whatever it is. Always just, even if it is
No, it's not.
drawing stuff on paper. Like, I don't know if it's old fashioned right now. Please, if it is, please don't listen to anyone who's calling it old fashioned, but just draw whatever you want. And do not, Instagram is bad for you. So do not be swept in that blindness of, oh my God, my artwork is not as beautiful as that one person on Instagram who's making beautiful, and then get discouraged. It's okay. He will get there. He also or she also did not start like that, right? Nobody starts like that. So you're just seeing the best example, very curated examples on the internet. Don't be disheartened by it. Learn from it. Take that as inspiration, but keep doing. Don't stop doing. That's the important thing. Like it's very easy to get lost in the cycle of consuming content. You're just sitting and browsing Instagram, and it takes away hours and hours away, and then you're not left with any time. But you have to force yourself. Like for me, I think it was easier because I didn't have internet as easily um, as you guys do, which is a good and a bad thing, right? Like when I didn't like as a kid, I think there was only one computer in my house that had internet, and that was my dad's laptop, and that too was a wired connection. It didn't have Wi-Fi, so all I had was a desktop. So anytime I would need to download something, I would probably look up some tutorials, download it, put it on a CD, burn it, or I think pen drives had started becoming popular, so I put it on a pen drive and then just bring it to my desktop, and then just all I really had access to was local stuff. And because of that, I was just forced to make. Like I had no option to consume. Of course, I played games, but apart from that, I really had no other option to browse the internet and just chill. Um, that's definitely there. Eventually, I did have access to the internet, and that's where DeviantArt and all that came about. And even though it was not great, right? It was super slow. It was not a pleasant experience. But yeah, so my point is, don't stop, keep doing. Please make stuff, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be drawings. It can be, if you want to make music, go make music. If you want to write, go write. If you just want to take a piece of paper and mindlessly just draw random things, just do that. There's no problem. Don't judge yourself. Do not do that. um, and creative outlets are many, right? Like there's no one set path for creativity. Like if your thing is, hey, I want my room to look good, sure, do that. Find new ways of making your room look good. If your thing is, hey, I want to have a really nice garden, do that. Try, like, just pursue it, pursue yourself. Like yeah, I think that's generally what I would say. And to be again very specific about design, if you're really like, okay, I want to get into UI UX design or something like that, get curious and get exploring. Go to Behance, go to Dribble, look at what the world is doing right now, um, and figure out, are you there? Like you want to get competitive, so then do that. You will not be there immediately, right? And it's, again, I would say, don't get discouraged. Take that opportunity to learn and ask, how do they do that? Reach out to people, ping the guy who made that, ask them. Um, hey, how did you do this? They'll reply. These are people are very nice. They'll reply. If you see something nice on Instagram and you're like, how do you do this? I'm trying to do this, but I'm not able to find that tutorial on YouTube, and try to do it and get acquainted with the tools. Like speak that language. If you want to get into UI UX, then speak that language. Learn how to use Sketch. Learn how to use Figma. Learn how to use XD. Learn how to make prototypes. Learn what it means to make a good experience.
Okay. So like that's all for today. I hope that your story like kind of draws a roadmap for people who are still figuring out like how to
Absolutely.
get into designing.
Absolutely.
And like it was just an amazing session for me as well to learn a lot.